Hi Virgo, welcome to your channel. And this reading, we will take a look at the awareness for the week, the guidance, the possible outcomes. This reading is good for any sun, moon, or rising Virgo sign. Um, okay, Virgo, there's a message being constructed in someone's throat right now. And the weight of what they're rehearsing is bending the air between you before a single syllable lands. I'm not talking about casual conversation. I'm not talking about another empty promise wrapped in pretty words. I'm talking about the kind of confession that rewrites contracts, the kind of declaration that shifts power dynamics, the kind of admission that forces you to recalibrate everything you thought you understood about this connection. Something is preparing to be spoken, and your body already knows it's coming. You didn't find this reading by chance. You are magnetized here because there's a frequency oscillating in your field, the frequency of imminent revelation. The intelligence governing synchronicity doesn't broadcast warnings without reason. You're here because what's about to be said requires you conscious before it arrives, not scrambling to process in real time. Steady yourself right now, because what I'm about to decode isn't gentle, it's not predictable. The cards are showing me formations that suggest rupture in communication patterns. Someone who's been performing silence is about to break character. Someone who's been hiding behind ambiguity is about to choose clarity. And clarity is always a blade that cuts both ways. The oracle is revealing pressure, not the dull ache of chronic tension, the sharp mounting pressure that precedes puncture, like abscess about to burst, like dams starting to crack, like secret that's been swelling in someone's chest until their rib cage can't contain it anymore. They're going to speak, and what they say is going to land in your reality like a stone thrown into still water, impossible to ignore, impossible to take back. Your pulse just shifted reading that, didn't it? Let me expose what's actually moving in the invisible architecture between you and this person right now. There's someone in your energetic field who's been calculating, not in real time. This isn't spontaneous. They've been carrying specific words in their mouth for days, maybe weeks, rolling them around like stones, testing their weight, rehearsing delivery, imagining your reaction. I'm receiving imagery of someone standing in front of a mirror, speaking to their own reflection, trying to find the right sequence, trying to figure out which words will land without detonating, which truth can be told without losing everything. But here's what the cards are whispering. They're done calculating. Something shifted. Some internal threshold got crossed, and the cost of silence just became higher than the risk of speaking. That's what's driving this message, not courage, necessity. They've reached the point where keeping this inside is more painful than facing whatever happens when it comes out. Now, here's where this gets complex, and you need to hear it clearly. The cards don't show me what's going to be said. That's not accessible, not to me, not to divination, not to anything outside the person holding those words. But they do show me the texture of it, the frequency, the energetic signature of what's preparing to move from internal to external. And that signature reads like confession, like admission, like someone who's been holding a position they can no longer defend. For some of you, this message is about feelings they've been suppressing, not casual interest, the kind of depth that terrified them into performing indifference. They're about to tell you they've been lying to you, to themselves, to anyone who asked about what you actually mean to them. But here's the shadow the cards want exposed. Just because someone admits they feel something doesn't mean they're ready to act on it. Confession sometimes functions as pressure valve. They tell you so they can stop carrying it alone, but telling isn't the same as choosing. Naming isn't the same as commitment. So when these words land, you're going to have to ask yourself, is this revelation creating movement toward me? Or is this just making me responsible for holding their truth while they continue doing nothing with it? For others, this message is about deception they've been maintaining, a lie that's been foundational to how they've presented themselves to you, not a small omission, something structural, something that, if you'd known from the beginning, would have changed whether you engaged at all. They're about to come clean, not because integrity finally won, because they're about to get exposed and they'd rather control the narrative than have you discover it from someone else. The cards are showing me specifically that for some of you, there's a third party involved. Not romantically necessarily, but someone who knows what you don't know. And that person is either threatening to tell you or has already started moving in that direction. And the person who's about to speak to you, they're trying to get ahead of the detonation. Something in your stomach just dropped, didn't it? Let me reveal what this message is not going to be, because there's temptation to project fantasy onto the unknown. This isn't guaranteed to be what you've been hoping for. The cards suggest high probability of significance, but significance isn't synonymous with satisfaction. Sometimes the biggest news is the worst news. Sometimes what someone finally says is the thing that makes you realize you've been holding space for a connection that was already dead. So before this lands, before you hear what's coming, you need to ask yourself, am I prepared for this message to be something I don't want to hear? Am I stable enough in my own reality that someone else's truth, whatever it is, won't shatter me? Because if you're not stable, if you're still outsourcing your worth to someone else's validation, then what's about to be said has the capacity to destabilize you in ways that will take months to recover from. The cards don't protect you from that. They only show you it's coming. What you do with the warning, that's your agency. Drop a chain emoji in the comments if something just tightened in your chest that you've been pretending wasn't there. Now let me go deeper into the mechanics of why this is surfacing now. There's been a collision of timelines. Something external happened to them, not to you, that forced recalibration. A conversation with someone else, a realization triggered by unrelated event, a consequence catching up to choices they thought they'd escaped. Whatever the catalyst, it disrupted their ability to maintain the status quo with you. The performance they've been sustaining, it just became too expensive, too exhausting, too dissonant with whatever truth is demanding acknowledgement. I'm seeing imagery of someone juggling. They've been keeping multiple realities in the air, what they show you, what they show others, what they admit to themselves in private. But one of those balls just slipped, and trying to catch it made them drop another. And now the whole performance is collapsing, and they have to choose which reality to commit to. And they're choosing something. The cards suggest movement toward you, but movement doesn't always mean arrival. Sometimes it just means they're finally being honest about the distance. Here's what the oracle wants you to understand about the timing. This isn't happening because you're ready. This is happening because they can't not anymore. Your readiness is irrelevant to their timeline. They're speaking because internal pressure exceeded their capacity to contain it. That matters because it means what's coming isn't about you, it's about them. And you cannot let their revelation become your responsibility to fix, to process for them, to make comfortable. When someone unburdens themselves to you, there's instinct to catch the weight, to help them carry it, to reassure them that it's okay they kept this from you. But the cards are warning, don't catch what they're throwing. Let it land. Let them hold the full weight of what they've been doing. Let them sit in the discomfort of finally being seen accurately instead of through the filter they've been maintaining. Your compassion in this moment cannot become complicity in your own diminishment. Now, let me address what this message might specifically reveal based on the patterns I'm reading. For some of you, this is admission that they've been seeing someone else while performing availability to you. Not physical necessarily, but emotional. They've been investing elsewhere while keeping you in rotation as backup option. And now either that other situation imploded, or they're being forced to choose, or they're just tired of managing the duplicity. They're going to try to frame this as honesty, as them finally being real with you. But honesty after months of deception isn't virtue, it's damage control. For others, this is confession about their actual relationship status. They've been presenting themselves as more available than they are. Maybe they're married and led you to believe they were single. Maybe they're in an open relationship but never mentioned the primary partner. Maybe they're emotionally unavailable in ways they've been performing past. Whatever the truth, it's about to surface. And you're going to have to decide in real time whether you're willing to accept the reality of who they actually are versus who you needed them to be. For some, this message is about intention. They're going to admit they're not looking for what you're looking for, that they've been enjoying the connection but never intended for it to go where you've been hoping it would go, that they've been aware of your investment and let you continue investing without correcting your perception of what this was. That's the cruelest version. Not because the truth is cruel, but because they knew you were building on false foundation and let you keep building. Tell me in the comments if your nervous system just confirmed something you've been explaining away for weeks. Now let me reveal what the cards are warning about specifically regarding how you receive this message. There's a pattern in your field that reads like hunger, like you've been waiting so long for clarity from this person that any communication feels like relief, even if what's being communicated isn't actually good for you. The cards suggest a risk of you mistaking crumbs for a meal, of you hearing what they say and immediately trying to find the hopeful interpretation, the version where this is actually the beginning of something instead of the ending being formalized. But sometimes, when someone finally speaks, what they're actually doing is saying goodbye in a way that makes them feel better about leaving. They're giving you explanation so they can walk away clean, conscience unburdened, believing they were honorable because they finally told the truth. Meanwhile, you're left holding the revelation, trying to make sense of months of behavior that suddenly has different context, realizing you were participating in a dynamic you didn't have accurate information about. That's not connection, that's extraction. They extracted what they wanted, your attention, your energy, your investment, and now that extraction is complete, they're exiting with a confession that absolves them. Don't let the act of speaking be confused with the act of caring. Sometimes people tell the truth specifically to relieve themselves of the burden of your expectation. Here's the brutal question the cards want you to sit with before this message arrives. What if what they're about to say confirms your worst suspicion? What if it validates the doubt you've been calling paranoia? What if it proves that your intuition was screaming accurate information and you kept silencing it? Can you handle being right about the thing you were hoping you were wrong about? Because that's what's at stake here, not just what they're going to say, but what you're going to do with the confirmation that you already knew and chose to ignore. That's the real reckoning. Not them and their truth, you and yours. Something just cracked open in your chest, didn't it? That's the part of you that's been waiting for permission to stop pretending. Let me tell you what happens after the words land. There's going to be a moment brief, maybe just seconds, where you have a choice. The choice isn't about them, it's about you. It's about whether you honor what you know or whether you negotiate with it. The cards suggest high probability that whatever they say, however they frame it, you're going to feel temptation to minimize, to find the interpretation that allows you to keep the connection alive. To tell yourself that at least they're being honest now, at least they're trying, at least they're still here. But at least is the language of settling. At least is what you say when you're accepting less than you deserve and trying to make peace with it. So, in that moment, when the words are still echoing and you haven't responded yet, I need you to remember something. What someone says in crisis doesn't erase what they did in comfort. Confession doesn't undo deception. Admission doesn't rebuild trust. Words are just words until behavior demonstrates that the words mean something. Don't make their revelation your closure. Don't let them speak their truth and walk away lighter while you're left heavier. If they're confessing, they're also requesting something: forgiveness, understanding, absolution, and you don't have to give it just because they asked. Your silence is an answer too. Your lack of reassurance is communication. You are not required to make their honesty comfortable for them. Now, let me address what's possible if what they say is actually aligned. Because there's a percentage of you for whom this message is the breakthrough you've been sensing, where someone finally drops their defenses and speaks from a place that's been inaccessible until now. If that's what lands, the cards still counsel caution, because intensity in confession doesn't guarantee sustainability in action. People say profound things in moments of emotional override that they can't back up once the moment passes. So even if what you hear feels like everything you've wanted to hear, you still need to watch what happens next. You still need to require demonstration. You still need to see if their words translate into changed behavior or if this is just catharsis for them with no structural shift following. The oracle suggests that for some of you, this message is genuine. It's the beginning of something real finally emerging from the fog of whatever's been obscuring it. But beginning means you're at mile 1, not the finish line. And beginnings require both people showing up consistently, not just one person speaking and the other person doing all the emotional labor to build from there. So, as we close this transmission, here's what the cards want you anchored in before these words arrive. Someone is about to speak, the message is forming, the timing suggests it's imminent hours, not days, and what they say is going to be significant enough that you'll remember where you were when you heard it. But their words don't determine your worth. Their truth doesn't override yours. Their revelation doesn't obligate you to anything except listening what you do after. That's your sovereignty. You get to honor what you know even when what they say contradicts it. You get to require proof even when they've offered explanation. You get to walk away even when they've finally shown up. This message is coming. But you're not passive recipient. You're active interpreter. And interpretation determines whether this moment becomes liberation or just a more articulate version of the same trap. Your whole body just said yes to something, didn't it? Comment what you felt shift when I said that. You were pulled here because you needed to hear this before the words land, because you needed reminder of your own agency before someone else's truth asks you to forget it, because you needed to know that whatever's about to be said, you're still the one who decides what it means for your life. The message is coming. The question isn't what they'll say. The question is, who will you be when you hear it? Will you be the person who makes their truth comfortable, or the person who honors their own truth louder? That choice, that's the only thing that matters here. Everything else is just noise looking for a place to land. Stand in your knowing. Trust what your body has been telling you. And when the words arrive, let them reveal what's already true rather than create truth that wasn't there before. The cards don't show the content, they only show the crossroads. And you're standing in it right now. What happens next depends entirely on whether you remember you were whole before this person spoke, and you'll be whole after, regardless of what they say. Gratitude for receiving this with the depth it requires. The message is forming. You're ready for it. Not because you know what it'll be, but because you remember who you are regardless. That's the only armor you need.